The cameras flash. The crowd at Anfield roars. A tall figure in red steps out, carrying the weight of a £125 million price tag, the most expensive signing in British football history. His name echoes through the stadium, Alexander Isak. For many, it is the moment he finally arrived on the grandest stage. But the truth is, this story doesn't begin with records or transfers. It doesn't even begin in England. It begins years earlier, in a small town outside Stockholm, in a modest home where immigrant parents whispered to their children about sacrifice, about survival, and about dreams worth chasing. It begins with a quiet boy, shy and reserved, whose life was never meant to be ordinary. Alexander Isak was born in Solna, Sweden, in September 1999. His parents had left their homeland of Eritrea, fleeing hardship with nothing but hope for a better life. They carried little in their hands, but much in their hearts: courage, resilience, and the desire to give their children opportunities they never had. In the quiet of their new life, football quickly became Alexander's voice. A ball at his feet said more than his shy words ever could. On the streets of Solna, with friends, with family, he found joy in the game, and his father soon took him to AIK, the local club. At 6 years old, he stepped into their youth system, small, wide-eyed, wearing boots too big for him. But within minutes, coaches noticed something unusual. He was calm, too calm for his age. He played like time slowed down around him, as if the pressure never touched him. He didn't shout, didn't boast, didn't try to show off. He just played, and when the ball came near, he always seemed to know what to do. As the years passed, whispers began. Sweden had produced Zlatan Ibrahimovic, a giant both on the field and in personality. And here was another tall, gifted striker emerging from Stockholm. The label was thrown on him: the next Zlatan. It sounded like a compliment, but for a teenager, it was also a heavy weight. How do you live up to someone considered one of the greatest of all time? Every goal, every touch, every movement was scrutinized under that comparison. But Alexander was not Zlatan. He didn't have the swagger or the fire in his words. He carried himself differently, humble, reserved, almost mysterious. He didn't want to be the next anyone. He wanted to be himself. At just 16 years old, he broke into AIK's first team and scored, becoming the youngest goal scorer in the club's history. The media exploded with headlines. Scouts packed the stands, and suddenly his name was whispered in conversations across Europe. He was tall, elegant, intelligent with the ball. Borussia Dortmund came calling, one of the great clubs of Germany, famous for turning raw talent into stars. The choice seemed obvious, a dream move. And so, in 2017, the boy from Solna left his home behind, stepping into the bright lights of the Bundesliga. But dreams are not always smooth. At Dortmund, the minutes were rare, the competition fierce. He trained with world-class players every day, but when match day came, he was often left on the bench. The same media that once praised him now doubted him. Too quiet, not strong enough, not ready. For the first time, he felt the sting of being called a failure. Alone in Germany, far from family, he faced cold nights and colder words. Many young players would have broken, many would have disappeared, but Alexander Isak refused to let his story end there. In 2019, he left on loan to Willem II in the Netherlands, and there something changed. Away from the pressure, away from the comparisons, he found freedom again. He smiled on the pitch. He scored with confidence. Game after game, the goals flowed, and the boy who had been written off began to rise again. It wasn't just about scoring. It was about rediscovering the joy of playing football. That joy carried him into the eyes of another club, Real Sociedad in Spain. The Basque country became his new home. In San Sebastian, he matured not just as a footballer, but as a man. La Liga demanded more of him, more technique, more vision, more patience, and he gave it everything. He scored in big games, dribbled through defenders, held up play like a seasoned striker. Slowly his reputation grew. The comparisons to Zlatan faded, replaced by respect for his own name. He was no longer someone else's shadow. He was Alexander Isak. Still, his story was only beginning. In 2022, Newcastle United, a club dreaming of new glory, saw him as their spearhead. They signed him, and in the Premier League, he became a revelation. His composure in front of goal, his elegance in movement, his ability to dribble past defenders, he gave Newcastle fans reason to believe. At St. James Park, his name was sung with pride. He wasn't just scoring goals, he was carrying hope. For the first time, England saw him not as a wonderkid, but as a true star. And then came the summer of 2025. Liverpool, chasing a new era, needed a striker to lead their line. They turned to him. Negotiations were long, headlines were everywhere. But finally, on September 1st, Alexander Isak signed for Liverpool for a British record £125 million. The boy once doubted, once questioned, was now at the pinnacle of world football. The shy child from Solna had become one of the most expensive strikers in history. Yet through it all, he never forgot his roots. He never forgot the sacrifices of his parents, who left Eritrea so their children could have a future. He never forgot the streets where he first kicked a ball, the quiet nights where he questioned himself, the lonely benches at Dortmund, the critics who doubted him. Those memories are what shaped him. They are what remind him that fame can fade, but character lasts forever. Today, when he walks onto the pitch, when the red shirt of Liverpool clings to his shoulders, he carries more than just the expectations of fans. He carries the story of resilience. He carries the hopes of a family who dreamed, the pride of a community in Sweden, and the proof that even the quietest voices can rise the loudest if they refuse to give up. He is no longer the next Zlatan. He is Alexander Isak, a man who carved his own destiny, a striker who turned doubt into strength, loneliness into focus, and pressure into glory. From the modest streets of Solna to Anfield's thunderous roar, his journey is more than football. It is the story of courage, of patience, of fighting through shadows until the world finally sees your light. And now, as he stands under the floodlights, the chants of his name ringing through the night, Alexander Isak's story is far from finished. It has only just begun. And as the curtain falls on this chapter of his journey, one truth remains. Alexander Isak's story is not only about goals and transfers, it is about a boy who turned the quiet whispers of doubt into the thunderous roar of belief. From immigrant roots to record-breaking heights, his life reminds us that greatness is not given. It is earned, step by step, through sacrifice, resilience, and faith. This has been the story of Alexander Isak, a story of struggle, of hope, and of triumph. You've been watching Goal and Glory, where every legend begins with a dream. If this story inspired you, join us again as we uncover the journeys of football's greatest fighters, dreamers, and champions. Until next time, keep chasing your own glory.